Book of Heaven, Volume 5. 24th to the 30th of October 1903. Page 22 to 28. October 24, 1903. An image of the Church. As I told the confessor about my concerns that my state may not be will of God, and that, at least as a test, I wanted to try to make an effort to go out of it and see whether I could manage or not, without raising his usual difficulties, the confessor said, "All right, tomorrow you will try." So I was left as if I had been freed of an enormous weight. Now, after he celebrated Holy Mass and I received communion, I saw my adorable Jesus in my interior for just a little, his gaze fixed on me, his hands joined, in the act of asking for pity and help. At that moment I found myself outside of myself, inside a room in which there was a lady, majestic and venerable, but gravely infirm. She was inside a bed with a headboard so high as to almost touch the vault, and I was forced to stay over this headboard, in the arms of a priest, in order to keep it still and to look at the poor ill one. While in this position, I saw a few religious surrounding and offering their cares to the patient, and saying among themselves with intense bitterness, "She is ill, she is ill, it would take nothing more than a little shake." And I was taking care of keeping the headboard of the bed still, for fear that, if the bed moved, she might die. But seeing that things were dragging on, and almost getting annoyed by that idleness, I said to the one who was holding me, "For pity's sake, let me get down. I am doing nothing good, nor am I helping anyone. Why stay here, so useless? If I get down, at least I can serve her, help her." And he, "Did you not hear that even a little shake could make her get worse and cause most sad things to happen to her? If you get down, since there is no one to keep the bed still, she may even die." And I, "But how can it be possible that, by just doing this, this good can come to her? I don't believe it, for pity's sake, let me get down." So, after I repeated these words several times, he put me down on the floor, and by myself, with no one holding me, I drew near the ill one, and to my surprise and sorrow I saw that the bed was moving. At those movements, her face went blue, she trembled and emitted a death rattle. Those few religious were crying and saying, "There is no more time, she is in the extreme moments now." Then some enemies entered, soldiers and captains, to beat the ill one. But, dying as she was, that lady got up with intrepidness and majesty to be wounded and beaten. On seeing this, I trembled like a reed, and I said to myself, "I have been the cause of this, I myself have given the push for so much evil to happen." And I understood that that lady represented the Church, infirm in her members, with many other meanings which it seems useless to me to explain, because they can be comprehended by reading what I have written. Then I found myself inside myself, and Jesus told me in my interior, "If I suspend you forever, the enemies will begin to make my Church shed blood." And I, "Lord, it is not that I do not want to stay. Heavens forbid that I move away from your will even for the blink of an eye. Only, if you want me to, I will stay, if you don't want me to, I will get out." And he, "My daughter, as soon as the confessor released you by telling you, 'All right, tomorrow you will try,' the bond of victim was also released, because only the freeze of obedience is what constitutes the victim. And I would never accept her as such without this freeze, even at the cost of making a miracle of my omnipotence, if necessary, to give light to the one who directs you so that he would give this obedience. I suffered, and suffered voluntarily, but what constituted me as victim was the obedience to my dear Father, who wanted to adorn all of my works, from the greatest to the littlest, with the honorary freeze of obedience. Then, finding myself inside myself, I felt a fear to try to go out. But then, I snapped out of it saying, "The one who gave me this obedience should have thought about this. And besides, if the Lord wants me, I am ready." October 25, 1903. The soul in grace enamors God. As the hour for my usual state came, I was thinking to myself that if the Lord would not come I should try to make an effort, to go out of it, also to see whether at least I could manage to. At first I could manage, but then my adorable Jesus came and showed me that when I would think of remaining in it, he would draw near me and bind me to himself, in such a way that I would not be able to go out. When, on the other hand, I would think of going out of it, he would move away and leave me free, in such a way that I could do it. So I could not make up my mind, and I said to myself, how I wish I could see the confessor so as to ask him what I should do. Then, a little later, I saw the confessor together with our Lord, and immediately I said, "Tell me, should I stay, yes or no?" While saying this, I saw in the interior of the confessor that he had withdrawn the obedience he had given me the day before, and so I decided to stay, thinking to myself that if it was true that he had withdrawn the obedience, fine. If then it was my fantasy that made me see it, while it could be false, when the confessor would come things would be taken care of, and I could try another day. So I calmed down. Then, continuing to make himself seen, blessed Jesus told me, "My daughter, the beauty of the soul in grace is so great as to enamor God himself." The angels and the saints are amazed at seeing this prodigious portent of a soul, still terrestrial, possessed by grace. At the fragrance of her celestial odor, they run around her, and to their highest pleasure they find in her that same Jesus who beatifies them in heaven, in such a way that it is indifferent for them to be up in heaven or down near this soul. But who maintains and preserves this portent, giving new shades of beauty, continuously, to the soul who lives in my will? Who removes any rust and imperfection from her, and administers to her the knowledge of the object she possesses? My will. Who strengthens her, establishes her and confirms her in grace? My will. The living in my will is the whole point of sanctity, and gives continuous growth in grace. However, one who one day does my will, and another her own, will never be confirmed in grace. She does nothing but grow and then decrease. And how much evil this brings to the soul! Of how much glory she deprives God and herself! She is the image of one who today is rich and tomorrow poor. She will be confirmed neither in richness nor in poverty, therefore one cannot know where she will end up. Having said this, he disappeared. After a little while, the confessor came, and as I told him what I have written, he assured me that he had truly withdrawn the obedience he had given me. To obey the confessor, I continue to tell the other meanings I understood on the 24th of this month. So, the lady represented the Church, who is infirm, not in herself, but in her members, but even though she is laid low and insulted by enemies, and rendered infirm in her very members, she never loses her majesty and venerability. As for the bed she was in, I understood that while the Church seems oppressed, infirm, opposed, she yet rests with a perpetual and eternal rest, and with peace and safety in the paternal bosom of God, like a child on the lap of her mother. I understood that the headboard of the bed that touched the vault was the divine protection that always assists the Church, and that everything she contains has all come from heaven, sacraments, doctrine and other things. Everything is celestial, holy and pure, in such a way that between heaven and the Church there is continuous communication, never interrupted. As for the few religious who offered care and assistance to the lady, I understood that few are those who defend the Church with all of themselves, considering the evils she receives as though given to themselves. The room in which she resided, made of stone, represented the solidity, the firmness, and even the hardness of the Church in surrendering to no one the rights that belong to her. The dying lady who, with intrepidness and courage, allows herself to be beaten by the enemies, represented the Church which, while she seems to be dying, rises again more intrepid, but how? Through sufferings and shedding of blood, the true spirit of the Church, always ready for mortification, as Jesus Christ was. October 27, 1903. The divine way of operating is only love for the Father and for men. As I was in my usual state, I saw my adorable Jesus for just a little, saying to me, "My daughter, to accept mortifications and sufferings as penance and as chastisement is praiseworthy, it is good, but it has no connection with the divine way of operating." In fact, I did much, I suffered much, but the way I had in all this was only love for the Father and for men. So, it shows immediately whether a creature has the way of operating and suffering in a divine manner, if it is love alone that pushes her to do it and to suffer. If she has other ways, good as they may be, they are always the ways of creatures, and therefore she will find in them the merit that a creature can acquire, not the merit that the Creator can acquire, because there is no union of ways. But if she has my way, the fire of love will destroy any disparity and inequality, and will form one single thing between my work and that of the creature. October 29, 1903. When the soul has the character of the purpose of creation impressed within herself, Jesus repays her with part of the celestial happiness. This morning my adorable Jesus made himself seen in my interior as if he had incarnated himself in my very person, and looking at me, he said, "My daughter, when I see the character of the purpose of creation impressed in the soul, feeling satisfied with her because I see so well accomplished the work created by me, I feel a duty, or rather, not a duty." He immediately added, "Because in me there are no duties, but my duty is a more intense love to repay her, advancing for her part of the celestial happiness, that is, manifesting to her intellect the knowledge of the divinity, attracting her with the food of eternal truths, amusing her sight with my beauty, making the sweetness of my voice resound to her hearing, to her mouth, my kisses, to her heart, my embraces and all my tendernesses. And this corresponds to the purpose for which I created her, which is, to know me, to love me, to serve me." And he disappeared. So, finding myself outside of myself, I saw the confessor and I told him what blessed Jesus had told me. I asked him whether it was according to the truth, and he said to me, "Yes." Not only this, but he added that the divine speaking could be recognized well, because when God speaks and the soul relates it, one who listens not only sees the truths of the words, but feels a movement in his interior, which only the divine spirit possesses. October 30, 1903. Teachings about peace. This morning, since my adorable Jesus was not coming, I was thinking in my interior, who knows whether it is true that it was our Lord who was coming, or rather, it was the enemy to deceive me. How could Jesus Christ leave me in such an ugly way, without pity? Now, while I was thinking of this, he made himself seen for a few instants, and raising his right hand, pressing his thumb on my mouth, told me, "Be quiet, be quiet." And besides, would it be nice if someone who has seen the sun, only because he does not see it, says that what he had seen was not sun? Would it not be more true and reasonable if he said that the sun has hidden? And he disappeared. I could not see him, but I felt that with his hands he was retouching me all over, and rubbing my mouth, my mind, etc., and he made me all shining. Since I could not see him, my mind continued to raise doubts, and he, making himself seen again, added, "You still don't want to stop it? You want to make my work in you disappear, because by doubting, you are not at peace, and since I am the fount of peace, as the one who guides you does not see you at peace, you will cause him to doubt that it is not the King of Peace who dwells in you. Ah, you do not want to be attentive. It is true that I myself do everything in the soul, in such a way that without me she would do nothing, but it is also true that I always leave a thread of will to the soul, so that she too may be able to say, I do everything of my own will. So, by being restless, you break this thread of union with me, and you bind my arms, in such a way that I am unable to operate in you, waiting for you to put yourself at peace again in order to take the thread of your will again and continue my work.